You know what? I was rejected from Harvard 10 times. 10 times. Not once, not twice. 10 times I sent my application, and 10 times they told me no. But that's not even the worst part. Let me tell you something that most people don't know. When KFC came to my city in China, 24 people applied for jobs there, 23 people got hired. I was the only one who got rejected. The only one. Can you imagine? Even KFC didn't want me. A company that was hiring almost everyone who walked through their door looked at me and said, "No, not you." I still remember walking home that day, thinking maybe everyone else sees something wrong with me that I can't see myself. I failed my university entrance exam twice. While my friends were moving forward with their lives, I was stuck, studying the same materials again, feeling like the whole world was passing me by. My relatives would whisper at family dinners. They thought I couldn't hear them, but I did. They'd say things like, "What's wrong with that ma boy? Why can't he pass a simple test?" Even my own parents started to wonder if maybe I just wasn't smart enough. And you know what? There were nights when I wondered the same thing. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, asking myself if maybe I should just accept that I'm not meant for anything special. When I finally became an English teacher, I was making $12 a month. $12. That's not a typo. I would ride my bicycle for 45 minutes each way to teach because I couldn't afford any other transportation. My students were learning English from someone who had never even been to an English-speaking country. I learned English by giving free tours to foreign tourists just so I could practice speaking. For 9 years, I did this. 9 years of barely surviving, and people would look at me with pity. Poor Jack. They'd say, "Still just a teacher." I was rejected from 30 jobs. 30. I applied to be a police officer. They said I wasn't qualified. I applied to be a manager at a local hotel. They said I didn't have the right look. Every single interview ended the same way. "We'll call you." But they never did. I became an expert at reading rejection in people's faces before they even opened their mouths. That slight shift in their expression when they decided I wasn't good enough. I knew it by heart. Let me tell you about the day I first heard about the internet. It was 1995, and I was in Seattle as a translator. Someone showed me this computer and said, "You can find anything on here." I typed the word beer. I don't even know why I chose that word, and all these beer companies from around the world appeared. But there was no Chinese beer. I searched China and found almost nothing. In that moment, standing in a stranger's office in Seattle, something clicked in my brain. I thought, if China isn't on the internet, maybe I can be the one to put it there. When I came back to China and told people about this idea called the internet, they looked at me like I had lost my mind. I gathered 17 friends in my apartment. We sat on the floor because I didn't have enough chairs, and I talked for 2 hours about how the internet would change everything. I told them we could build something called Alibaba, a company that would help small businesses in China sell to the world. I was sweating. My voice was shaking. I was drawing diagrams on pieces of paper. At the end, I asked them to vote. 5 people said maybe we should try. The rest thought I had completely lost it. But here's what I learned that nobody teaches you in school. Being called crazy is sometimes the first sign you're onto something big. Every breakthrough idea sounds insane before it becomes obvious. People called me Crazy Jack behind my back. My own wife asked me if we were going to lose everything. My parents couldn't explain to their friends what their son was doing. He quit his teaching job to play with computers. They'd say, shaking their heads. We started Alibaba in my apartment. 18 people crammed into a small space, working 18 hours a day. We had no money. I mean really no money. We would count coins to buy lunch. 1 computer for 3 people. No salaries for months. My team was sleeping on the floor of the office because they couldn't afford to go home. I remember one night, it was probably 3 a.m. I looked around at these exhausted faces, these people who believed in a dream that even I sometimes doubted. And I thought, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm destroying all these people's lives for nothing? The first 3 years, we made zero profit. Zero. Not small profit, zero profit. Every month, I had to look my team in the eyes and say, just one more month, trust me, one more month. Investors laughed at us. Western tech companies said we'd never survive. Chinese businesses said we didn't understand the market. My own friends started avoiding me because they were tired of hearing about this internet dream that was clearly going nowhere. I pitched to venture capitalists, and they would literally laugh. Not smile politely, actually laugh. One investor told me, Jack, Alibaba is a terrible name. Your business model makes no sense. And honestly, you don't look like a leader. He was sitting there in his expensive suit, in his fancy office, telling me I didn't look like a leader. And you know what? Part of me believed him. When you hear no enough times, it starts to sound like the truth. But let me tell you something I discovered. During those dark years, success has nothing to do with how you look, where you went to school, or who believes in you at the start. Success is about how many times you can hear no and still wake up the next morning ready to try again. It's about being so stubborn about your vision that rejection becomes fuel instead of poison. There was this moment. We were almost out of money. Maybe 2 weeks left before we'd have to shut down everything. I hadn't slept in 3 days. I was sitting on the floor of our office at 4 a.m. and I just started crying. Not little tears. I mean really crying. All the fear, all the doubt, all the rejection just came pouring out. And in that moment, crying on that dirty office floor, I made a decision. I decided that even if we failed, even if everyone was right about me being crazy, at least I would fail trying to build something that mattered. 2 weeks later, we got our first real investment. Not because we suddenly became smarter or our business model changed, but because one investor saw something in our desperation that the others missed. He saw that we would die before we quit. He told me later, Jack, I didn't invest in your business plan. I invested in the fact that you were too stubborn to stop. Let me tell you what nobody tells you about becoming successful. It's not the moment you make your first million or even your first billion. Success is the moment you realize that every rejection was teaching you something you needed to know. Every failure was removing a weakness you couldn't see. Every person who said you weren't good enough was accidentally showing you exactly where you needed to grow. When Alibaba finally started working, when we went from 18 people in my apartment to thousands of employees, when we went from zero to billions, people started calling me a genius. The same people who laughed at me wanted to know my secrets. But here's the truth. I'm not a genius. I failed more than anyone I know. The only difference is I kept going when everyone else would have stopped. I learned that IQ and EQ are not enough. You need LQ, the love quotient. You need to love what you're doing so much that rejection feels like a misunderstanding rather than a verdict. You need to love your vision more than you fear judgment. When you love something that deeply, you can survive anything. People ask me now, Jack, what's the secret to building wealth? And I tell them something they don't want to hear. The secret is to stop trying to build wealth. That's right. Stop trying to be rich. Instead, try to solve a problem. Try to help someone. Try to make something better. The money will follow, but only if you're not chasing it. Money is like a shadow. If you run after it, you'll never catch it. But if you walk toward the sun, toward your purpose, the shadow follows you everywhere. I spent years teaching English for $12 a month. Not because I loved being poor, but because I loved teaching. I loved seeing understanding dawn in my students' eyes. That love taught me patience. It taught me how to explain complex things simply. It taught me how to inspire people who had given up on themselves. Every skill that made Alibaba possible, I learned in that tiny classroom, making almost nothing, teaching people who couldn't afford better teachers. When I was riding my bicycle to teach, successful businessmen would pass me in their cars, and I'd think about how unfair life was. Why was I so unlucky? Why was everything so hard for me? But now I understand. I wasn't unlucky. I was being prepared. Every rejection was building my resilience. Every failure was teaching me empathy for others who fail. Every moment of poverty was showing me what real hunger feels like. Not hunger for food, but hunger for change. There's something I need you to understand. Especially if you're watching this feeling like the world is against you. The world is not against you, it's testing you. It's asking you, how badly do you want this? What are you willing to sacrifice? How many times can you get back up? And every time you answer by getting up one more time, trying one more time, believing one more day, you're building something inside yourself that no amount of money can buy. Unbreakable spirit. I see young people today, and they're so afraid of failure. They want guarantees. They want to know that if they try, they'll succeed. But let me tell you something. The only guarantee in life is that if you don't try, you've already failed. At least when you try and fail, you get a story, you get experience, you get stronger. When you don't try, you get nothing except regret. When we took Alibaba public and I became wealthy beyond my dreams, journalists wanted to know how it felt to prove everyone wrong. But that's the thing. I wasn't trying to prove anyone wrong. I was trying to prove something to myself. I was trying to prove that an ordinary person, a person who fails at everything, a person who doesn't look like a leader, doesn't sound like a genius, doesn't have the right background, that person can still build something extraordinary if they just keep going. You know what breaks my heart? It's not my own failures. I'm grateful for every single one. What breaks my heart is seeing people give up just before their breakthrough. I see it all the time. People who are so close to everything they've dreamed of, and they quit because the pain feels unbearable. But pain is temporary. Regret is forever. I think about that young man who was rejected from KFC, who was told 30 times he wasn't good enough for any job, who was teaching for $12 a month. If I could go back and tell him something, you know what I'd say? I'd say, every single tear you're crying is watering seeds you can't see yet. Every rejection is redirecting you toward your real purpose. Every failure is just life's way of saying not this way. Try another way. People think courage means not being afraid. That's completely wrong. Courage is being terrified and doing it anyway. When I started Alibaba, I was scared every single day. Scared we'd run out of money. Scared I was wasting everyone's time. Scared my parents were right to be worried. Scared I'd become another forgotten failure. But I did it anyway. Not because I was brave, but because the fear of not trying was worse than the fear of failing. Let me share something with you that changed my life. One day, when I was at my lowest, when nothing was working and everyone thought I was finished, an old man told me a story. He said, "Jack, you know what bamboo does? For 5 years after you plant it, you see nothing. Nothing. You water it, you care for it, but above ground, nothing. Then, in 6 weeks, it grows 90 feet. He looked at me and said, the question is not whether you'll grow. The question is whether you'll keep watering when you see nothing. That's what I want to leave you with today. Your bamboo moment is coming. I don't know when, maybe in a month, maybe in a year, maybe in 5 years, but it's coming. Every day, you don't give up. Every rejection you survive, every failure you learn from, you're growing roots. Deep, strong roots that will hold you up when your moment arrives. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Stop thinking successful people had it easier. I promise you, they didn't. They just hid their struggles better, or you weren't watching when they were crying on their office floor at 4 a.m. Every single person you admire has a collection of failures that would make your problems look small. But here's the beautiful truth I discovered. You don't need to be special to do something special. You don't need to be a genius to build something genius. You don't need to come from the right family, have the right education, or look the right way. All you need is to be too stubborn to quit and too crazy to think small. The world needs what you're building, even if the world doesn't know it yet. The world needs your different perspective, your unique solution, your crazy idea. Don't let the world convince you to be reasonable. Reasonable people don't change the world. It's the unreasonable ones, the ones who believe in impossible things, the ones who keep going when logic says stop. We're the ones who create tomorrow. If you're watching this with tears in your eyes because life feels too hard right now, good. Those tears mean you still care. Those tears mean you haven't given up. Those tears are not weakness. They're proof that you're still fighting for something that matters to you. Let them fall and then get back to work. Your future self is counting on you to not give up today. I'm not special. I'm not a genius. I'm just a teacher who was too stubborn to accept that $12 a month was all I was worth. And if I can go from being rejected by KFC to building one of the world's biggest companies, then whatever dream is burning in your chest right now, whatever impossible thing you're afraid to admit you want, it's not too big for you. You're just not done growing yet. Keep watering your bamboo. Keep believing in your tomorrow. Keep moving forward even when you can't see the path. Because one day, and that day will come sooner than you think, you'll look back at this exact moment. This moment when everything felt impossible. And you'll realize this was the moment everything changed. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you decided to change your circumstances. The question is not whether you'll succeed. The question is whether you'll last long enough to receive the success that's already waiting for you. Every morning you wake up and try again. You're one day closer. Every rejection you survive, you're one step stronger. Every time you choose to believe in yourself when no one else does, you're writing a story that will inspire millions. Your time is coming. Your breakthrough is approaching. Your bamboo is about to shoot 90 feet into the sky. Don't you dare give up now. Not when you've come this far. Not when you've survived this much. Not when your future is so bright it would blind you if you could see it. Remember, I was rejected 30 times. I failed at almost everything I tried. People called me crazy. KFC wouldn't even hire me. And today, I'm telling you that all of that was perfect. Every single rejection, every single failure, every single moment of pain was perfect because it led me here to this moment, sharing this truth with you. You are exactly where you need to be, experiencing exactly what you need to experience, to become exactly who you're meant to become. Trust the process, love the journey, and never, ever, ever give up.